Please let us know in the chat where you are joining from and if you can hear us clearly. So far, we have 140 attendees. Let's make this 200. I hope it's going to be an exciting section. Today, we'll be discussing about securing the most important component of the internet, the DNS infrastructure. I see people from South Africa, a lot of them. Oh, yeah. Congo, Divine from Congo. Yeah. Can you hear me? I see people from Sudan. Welcome. From Benin, Tanzania. From Cameroon, Nigeria. Zambia. We are fully represented. The continent is fully represented. This is interesting. From Somalia. From Tanzania, Karibu. From Burkina Faso, you're welcome. Gambia. Oh, Kenya. All right. So we have 161 attendees. Yahaya from Mali. Okay. So let's start with the session. So today we are going to talk about a very interesting initiative called the KINDNS. KINDNS as in KINDNS. That is an initiative from, I would say from ICANN, but yeah, supported by ICANN, but from various practitioners of the internet around the world to make sure that we have current good practices to secure our internet, our DNS infrastructure. So before we dive into all these technicalities and the discussions, I would like to really warm welcome you. We are very thrilled to have you here today. And I know for the Zoom platform, we are all quite familiar with it already, but just to remind you of some key options in the platform. So if you have a question during the session, you can use the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen, Q&A for your questions. If you have any other comments, suggestion related to this webinar or any recommendation, please type it in the chat. Please, all your questions should be related to the topic of today. Let's not divert from the central topic. So today with me, I have two esteemed panelists, Mr. Yazid Akanho from ICANN and Mr. Cedric Mbeyet from Afrinic. I will leave the floor first to Akanho to introduce himself.
Thanks, Cedric. Hi, everyone. Of course, it's really good to have so many people attending the session, and we can clearly see the diversity of Africa. This is really good, and thanks for joining us. So as Stephen said, I'm Yazid Akanho. I work for ICANN, mainly for the team which is called the Technical Engagement. And that team is actually in charge of talking with all the technical stakeholders that run or contribute in a way or another to the operations of the internet, which are mainly the ISPs, the mobile network operators, the regulators, universities as well, because this is where the next generation, right, is built. So we work with all those technical stakeholders to really understand what is the internet, how it works in the background, and what are the standards and the best practices to operate a network which is connected to the internet, with a special focus on the DNS, of course, on the domain name system. But not only, because the DNS definitely is one of the most important services, but not the only one. So sometime in our engagement activities, we also cover other kind of important topics, such as the security of the routing itself, etc. And sometimes we just redirect the audience as well to the regional internet registries who have more skills, right, to train and to teach people and to talk also on routing and all the connectivity aspects. That's mainly what I do, and I'm in charge of the African and the Middle East region. Thanks, and back to you, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yazid. And you see, Yazid is very, very well contributing to, improving the landscape of internet in Africa. And this is very something that we need to commend him for. I forgot to say at the beginning that this webinar is a collaboration between Afrique and ICANN. So we joined effort for this session. And this session on kindness is just the first session on securing DNS infrastructure. So we have this one this week, and next week, that's the 10th of August, we'll be having the next one on DNSSEC validation. So we'll keep in touch. We'll keep you in touch, and we'll communicate more about that. Now, let me give the floor to Mr. Cedric, who I guess is someone who is well known already in the community, and he will introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cedric Mbeye. I work at Afrinic. I'm currently a stakeholder engagement manager, technical, and so mainly working with the technical on technical programs and projects. So, and supporting all the technical communities, and at the same time also working with the IT and security department at Afrinic. So I'm very pleased to be here and to talk about DNS, because this is something very important, as you mentioned. And like someone very famous said once, is that internet is actually about root, address, and names. So you cannot have internet without the three of them. Thank you, and back to you, Stefan.
So without any other form of protocol, let me give the floor to Mr. Yazid Ankao to lead us through the kindness initiative. Yours, Mr. Ankao.
Thank you, Stefan. So people used to ask, how do we pronounce this complicated name, right? But it's quite simple. It's just kindness. So it's an initiative which really aim to make the DNS operators to be, let's say, much more kind, right? To who? To the systems, to the services, I mean, to the DNS services that they are providing to their customers, right? And at the end of the day, it's really to make the customers, the users of the internet, much more, comfortable being connected to a network or another. Because sometimes also this is something that some people have faced. Usually when the DNS server is not working, we are in trouble. You can get a couple of gigabytes of bandwidth, but if the DNS service, which is actually providing the names resolution, right, for whatever address or whatever destination you are trying to reach on the internet, then it looks like you don't have internet, right? So this initiative is a kind of key important standards and best practices that are provided to the DNS operators whatever kind of DNS service they are running, because there are different kind of DNS service as well. We have the authoritative name servers, which just serve a zone file, and they provide answer to any kind of query that comes, and which is related to any resource records that belong to the zone they are serving. On the other side, there are DNS servers that we call recursive resolvers, right? Those are the ones sitting in the ISP premises that collects all the DNS queries and try to get the answer before returning back to the user. Of course, among those recursive resolvers, we have some of them that are publicly available for use, like the Google public DNS servers, the well-known Quad 8. There are others like the Quad 1 or the Quad 9, etc., etc. Those ones are called recursive resolvers, right? So, but KINDNS is a cyber, right? And it means it's quite complicated, but not really. So it means knowledge sharing and instantiating norms for domain name system and naming security. So to make it really simple, it's a framework. It's a sort of framework that really aims to help the DNS operators, again, whatever kind of DNS service they are running, to follow the evolution of the DNS protocol itself, because the DNS is almost 40 years now. We are 2023, it's 40 years now. And of course, at the same time, the best practices, the best common operational practices. And all those are dynamic, right? So if you go to the Internet Engineering Task Force, right, which is the place where the internet-related standards and best practices are developed, you will see that for the DNS alone, there are almost 300, maybe there are even more now because I haven't got the latest updates, but we are around 300 individual documents, right? We are talking about standards, we are talking about informational, we are talking about best practices, etc., etc. You see. So sometimes for DNS operators, it's quite difficult to identify what are the most important standards and best practices to follow and to implement in the infrastructure. And this is where KINDNS actually fits in. Because we try to identify, and as Stephen said at the beginning, it is not an ICANN work alone, right? It is a community-driven project. So, but just supported by ICANN. So within what we call the KINDNS mailing list, there have been intensive discussions to identify, based on the type of DNS operator that exists, which kind of practices are important for them to actually follow and to implement, right? So we came up with 5 categories of DNS operators, 2 categories for the authoritative name servers operators. The first one is the top-level domains, so the generic top-level domains and all the country code top-level domains, and any other kind of critical zones, right? So there are some practices that are dedicated to this category of DNS operator. Let me take, we have 54 CCTLDs in our region in Africa, and there are around 22, 25 in the Middle East, right? So if we take those country code top-level domains, plus all the critical zones, and of course, it is you as registrant who knows the type of service you are providing behind this domain you have registered. And definitely you are the one who decide if your domain is a critical one or not, right? So let's take a domain name which is serving visa for the foreign people. Of course, definitely this is a kind of critical domain, right? Let's take a government domain. This is also a critical one. All those domains that are serving citizens services, all those ones are critical domains. So definitely the kind of practices that you should follow for such kind of domain is different from the ones of just Yazid.bj, who is selling just some books or just for his online presence. It's totally two different things. On the other side, we have three categories of recursive resolver operators: the closed private, the shared private, and the public recursive resolver operators. And again, here as well, for each of them, the KINDNS community has identified some practices that's worth being implemented in the infrastructure which is serving this kind of service. And regardless the kind of DNS operator that you are definitely running your service on some machines. There could be virtual machines or physical machines, and those machines are sitting somewhere on the internet, right? Again, Cedric mentioned that before. Internet is a combination of IPs and names and resources, right? So hardening the core of the network of the infrastructure is also important, and we have identified some practices for those one for that category of for that part of the infrastructure. So let's go in the details of these things. I won't really, comment on all of the practices, but for the authoritative DNS operators of TLDs or critical zones, we have identified 7 key practices, right? And you can see, for those who are familiar with the IETF environment, we can see a must here. This is, it has been a long debate whether we should put must or should for each of those practices, right? But yes, it has been a long debate, and we just followed the consensus here. And because of the diversity that we had in this KINDNS mailing list as well, we heard from DNS operators themselves who are contributing to the KINDNS community, right? We heard from people who are really active at the IETF, right? We also heard from research people, etc., etc. So it was really a consensus and a multi-stakeholder approach that was also used there as well. And you can see all the practices that have been identified for those operators who are running critical domains. They must secure the extension or the domain with DNSSEC and follow key management best practices. This is really important. Otherwise, you will secure your infrastructure, but the key could be weak, or the way the keys are secured is weak. And that way, all your infrastructure is in a real bad position, right? So how are you transferring the zone file? Are you sure that only those secondary name servers have access to the zone file on the primary, or you open your zone transfer? How do you confirm the integrity of the zone file before publishing it on the internet? We have seen incidents over the years, right? While there is a top-level domain operator who just publishes zone file without verifying the integrity of it. And unfortunately, it led to incidents, which of course makes sense. But if before publishing the zone file, they have a mechanism to confirm the integrity and take necessary action before publishing it, they could have avoided such incidents, right? So there are those kind of best practices that worth implementing to reduce the most likelihood of having an incident, right? We are in operations here, and one of the key objectives is to run the system's 99.99999%, right? And that's why all those practices, we really think that implementing them in your network will totally reduce the likelihood of having incidents, right? It doesn't mean that you will never face incident, but at least even if the incident happens and we dig into it, we will see that at least you have implemented all the security measures, right? All the measures that can ensure a higher resilience of your infrastructure. And probably the issue happened because of something that was beyond your responsibility, right? So I want to go into the details of the practices for each of those 5 categories of DNS operators, but you can always go to the KINDNS website, right, which is kindness.org. And you can scroll on that menu. If you go to operator categories, which is just here, you will see the 5 categories of operators there. Even those who have already joined the KINDNS as participant, I mean the operators who have joined the KINDNS as participant. And this is the time also to inform you that as an operator, you can join the KINDNS initiative, right, as a partner, as a participant. And if you go to tools and guidelines and you scroll to guidelines, you will actually see the well-described documentation of each of those practices for each and every category of DNS operator. So for critical zones and top-level domain operators, we have mentioned about 7 practices, right, before. So if you scroll to tools and guidelines and then to guidelines, critical zone and TLD operators, you will see a PDF documentation there, which actually describe all those practices and how to implement them also. And this is really good, important for a DNS operator who probably understands the need, but doesn't know how, right? So we put the why and we also put the how to do it. And feel free to go and download those practices. You can do it. And then there is also the possibility to run the self-assessment tool, right? So the KINDNS initiative also aims to provide those DNS operators the possibility to auto-evaluate or to self-evaluate themselves, right, against those practices we have identified. So you don't really need an external auditor, or you don't really need a kind of consultant. You will pay with a lot of money, and knowing that some of those operators even don't have a lot of money, right? Being a mobile network operator or an ISP, I can probably afford getting an external auditor, right? But what if I run myself a self-assessment, even before hiring an external consultant, right? So with the KINDNS initiative, with the self-assessment, you can yourself go and self-evaluate yourself. And at the end, you will get a report that tells you what is your percentage or your ratio of your scoring. Basically, it provides you with a scoring. And it will tell you for each of those practices you are not really implementing, it will guide you to the recommendations I mentioned before, the guidelines. So feel free to take the self-assessment. You can get the report at the end. You can even download that report, share it with your management, share it with your engineering team, and take decision, right? Based on that, how should we improve where we are not really doing well, right? And it's all a matter of how do we improve what we are providing as services now, right? And since we have launched the Kindness initiative, it was September last year, so almost 1 year now, we are seeing some trends, some interesting trends. So when you take the self-assessment, one of the first questions is, why are you taking this self-assessment? Is it to know where you stand within the kindness practices? Is it just to join the kindness? Yes, I forgot to mention that before joining the kindness as a participant, you need to take the self-assessment, okay? So, or is it also to use the results of the self-assessment to convince your team and convince your management about your strategy to improve the services, the DNS services that you are providing, right? And we have seen that 30% of the first operators who took the self-assessment, so 35% of them have clearly said that they want to use the result of the self-assessment to convince the management, right? Which actually makes sense. And it's quite good for us to know that, well, the tool will be used to have a better conversation between operations and management. Because sometimes it's quite hard, right, for operation people to go talk with the management, the executive, to actually go get some budget, right, to improve the operations. But believe me, you don't always need money, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of commitment. And sometimes it's just a matter of how do you, for each of those recommendations, how do you check if sometimes even just the software, the DNS software you are running already provides the functionality, the feature, right, to implement that practice. So in that case, you definitely don't need any investment. You just need to go and read how the DNS software vendor recommends to implement that feature, and you do it, right? Probably by doing it on your test bed first. Don't go to the live system directly. So those are kind of actions that you can take after the self-assessment, right? And again, it all depends on where you stand and what do you want, or where do you want to reach? Which level do you want to reach in terms of resilience, in terms of availability of the service you are providing? There are so many early observations, but I won't really spend a lot of time on that. We have identified in terms of best practices for the diversity, for example, that some of the operators are following the diversity recommendation. If I'm not mistaken, it is the BCP, is it the 16? I don't really recall. I think it is BBC, the IETF best current practice 16, which is recommending for a DNS service to be geographically distributed, network distributed as well. But the software diversity has been also highlighted by some of the operators who are participating to the Kindness initiative. So they clearly said that the software diversity should be put as a must for a critical zone and a top level domain DNS service operator, just to avoid in case the software is compromised, just to avoid being compromised for all your infrastructure, right? because you are running a critical zone, it is important to also running a different kind of software, just to avoid getting into that trap of the software which is compromised for whatever reason it is. So how did we select the best operational practices that we highlighted before? Again, it was a community-driven discussion. We asked operators. We even had some conversations with some NOGs, with some technical communities. Again, we reviewed a lot of RFCs that are related to the DNS. And of course, the majority of the discussion was done on the KINDNS mailing list. And you are more than welcome to join that mailing list. If you take the self-assessment and you feel like there are some practices you would like to propose, right, as a best practice, feel free to raise that. And of course, it's a matter of debating, right? It's a matter of arguing. So don't feel discouraged if you bring the discussion, but others think totally different, right? This is how we have been doing since 2021, that the KINDNS mailing list is operational. So it took us like 1.5 years to make intensive discussion around those practices and around even splitting the DNS operators into those 5 categories I mentioned before. And also, of course, that discussion of must or should for some of those practices, it was really intense, but it was good to have. And it was also good to hear from different kind of operators at different positions, running different kind of services and facing different kind of challenges, right? But at the end of the day, it was a consensus-driven discussion, and it was really fun. And I really look forward for new, participants to join the KINDNS mailing list. Of course, it's quite silent these days. It's normal since we have launched the system. The amount or the number of emails we are exchanging is quite low now. But the KINDNS initiative is dynamic. So it is something that we want to be changing over time, to be evolving over time. So feel free to join us and even propose new kind of things. Right now we are working on translating the whole platform into other languages, right? So that people who speak French only can take the self-assessment without any issue, not only French, but other UN languages as well, right? We are also pushing to evolve the self-assessment so that we can take some measurements. We can do the integration with ZoneMaster. For those who know ZoneMaster, it's an online, publicly available tool that can help you, test your domain configuration, right? So all those people who run domains, they well know this tool. If you don't know about it, just Google it, ZoneMaster. It will drive you to the tool. You can put the domain name there. It will scan it, but the scanning is only for the technical configuration, and it will tell you if your zone is not well distributed. It will tell you if all your name servers are sitting in the same network. It will tell you.
Hello, Yazid. Please
yes,
hold
Stefan?
a minute. I see Mr. Motuzi says that the sound is gone. I just want to confirm with other participants if they are still having the sound, because me, I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Yeah, so please type in the chat if you can still hear us. All right, so Mr. Motuzi, please check your sound from your end, because yeah, I see everyone can hear. Yeah. So just so, yeah, thank you. All right, you can move on.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hold on, Mr. Hussein. Mr. Hussein, I see you have a hand raised. If you have any question, please use the Q&A section to type your question. And if you really want to talk, after the presentation of Yazid, we might give you the mic for a few seconds. Yazid, please move on.
Thank you, Stephen. So those are the current improvement activities that are going on. And of course, there is still a lot in the pipe. And again, it is a community-driven initiative. Feel free to join us at any time to contribute to this, right? Well, of course, in terms of community engagement, this webinar is part of it. It is a matter of, going to the operators and showing them the platform, what it can do and what they can benefit from it, right? So as the same way the manners came few years before, right, on the best practices, on the routing security, right? So we thought that writing the best practices for the DNS services is also important. And this is why we are also trying to promote together in partnership with manners and other kind of initiative that aim all together to make the internet more secure and more resilient, right, and more stable, of course. Yes, there are a lot of discussion points that we have started during some presentations at some technical events. And we are still discussing, we are still debating whether or not we should make those points as practices, etc., etc. And to end this presentation, I'm just sharing as a recommendation some tools that worth testing and trying and adopting as well. In addition to the KINDNS platform. So I mentioned about Zone Master before. There is DNS Viz for those who run DNSSEC on their zone, how to make sure that the chain of trust is maintained, all your keys are well used, and also the signatures and how also the link between your parent and your zone. So again, the chain of trust, how all of this is maintained. DNS Viz can really help you have an holistic visibility on your DNSSEC configuration, and there are plenty of other tools, right? And if you want to stay informed and contribute to the KINDNS initiative, please, you have different options. Join the website, of course, take the self-assessment, go to the guidelines and read them. And we are looking forward to welcome you as KINDNS participant, right? You can follow us on Twitter. If you have any idea and want to share with us, please drop us an email, and you can always join the mailing list as well. So with that said, I'm at the end of the presentation, and I will hand over back to Stephen to drive us through the next step of this session. Thank you, and back to you, Stephen.
Merci, Mr. Yazid. So for all those who are French speaking, you can type your question in French and we'll translate for Yazid to answer. If you have questions, please type in the Q&A section. I see 2 hands are raised. I'm going to enable Hussein to talk. Meanwhile, for the others, please, you can add your questions in the Q&A section. So, Mr. Hussein, the floor is yours if you have something to say. Okay, Mr. Hussein is not reacting. I'm going to pass the mic to Mr. Zavian. Mr. Zavian, you can talk. All right, probably I guess it was a mistake. Okay, so I'm going to release a poll right now, and you will see it displayed on your screen. And the question is, how many categories, just after this presentation, how many categories of DNS operators are identified in the KINDNS in the KINDNS program? I always read it KINDNS, you know. It's a bit confusing. KINDNS, you know, one of these nice words from network engineers when you want to polish the stuff. But yeah, I think this is a very, very cool initiative. You know, the DNS is like the key infrastructure for the internet, because as you said at the beginning of your presentation, any query that goes on, let's say when you go and type www.afric.net or maybe ICANN website, it is translated into you know, into an IP address, and this is done thanks to the domain name system. The domain name system is also like very vulnerable, and you know, people can attack your system if it is not well secured. So this initiative, the KINDNS initiative, is really a very good initiative with a list of practices which you can adopt to make sure that your infrastructure is more secure. So we invite people to join the fight, to join the battle, to join the initiative, because you know, the internet is it's a collaborative network, and the security of this network belongs to all of us. All of us, we have to participate. The internet security is as stronger as we participate, the many of us. We have 313 participants, and some of them are answering the poll. We will soon close the poll. We have two questions. The first question is, how many categories of DNS operators are identified in the KINDNS program? And the KINDNS self-assessment is personal platform. Blah, blah, blah. The platform does not link any answer to the organization, true or false. So yeah. So we have some questions in the Q&A session. Yazid, you can either type the answers or pick some of them. Let me read them out to you. The first one: why are current ISPs not aware of zonemaster.net? Do you want to answer that live?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can answer that live. So yes, this is something that we have noticed when engaging with some operators. We noticed that the technical team are not aware of some of those publicly available tools. But you know, that's how it works, and it's a matter of being informed of that, right? So it's probably by attending such kind of webinars that Afrinic organize, or any other organization, or you attend trainings, etc., or workshops, that you hear about those tools. Otherwise, they exist since so long. But yeah, if you don't have the information, you definitely don't have it until you have it.
All right, merci. Next question is, which operating system is best and most reliable to run DNS service? All right, I will give that to Cedric. I'll give that to Cedric. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Stefan. This is a really tricky question, in the sense that I don't want to promote any particular operating system, but I will just go with the tendency. And I will say that most of the network operators and DNS admin prefer to use Unix or Linux system, or let's say BSD system, because they find it more reliable and more simple. And also for a lot of them, the reasoning behind using this type of system is because you can actually spin up a system with very limited resources, like one CPU, one virtual CPU, 1 gig of RAM, and let's say like 6 gig of hard disk, and your DNS is up and running. Because at the end of the day, even if DNS is a critical service, doesn't eat that much resources. So part of the reason why lots of people prefer that system. But again, you can use any type of system, of operating system that you are comfortable with. So if you are more interested into Microsoft, or if you have organizational constraints that push you for Microsoft, yes, DNS also works with Microsoft. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric. So for the poll is still on your screen. Please fill it. We have only 43% of respondents. Out of the 317 people present in this webinar, only 131 have filled so far the poll. Please respond to the poll. I will go for the next question, and is from Shishe. As a network engineer, how can I contribute to KINDNS? I'll give that one to Yazid.
Cool. Thanks, Stefan, and thanks to Shishe for the question. There are different ways to contribute. I think the first one is at least to go and read about those practices, right? And the recommendation and the reasoning behind those practices. And then to take the self-assessment, right, for your own systems you are running, right? You are overseeing, just to see where are you sitting among those practices, right? And I really look forward that at the end of the self-assessment, you will go to the recommendations and implement them, right? And come back later on to take again the self-assessment. This is already a contribution to the KINDNS and to your own infrastructure, I mean, to the improvement of your own infrastructure. And then you can now take the next step, which is to join, to officially join. So if you go to the KINDNS platform, and as I said before, you go to this operators category, you will click on it, and then you see that there are some operators who have already joined. So you can also join, right? And by the way, in Africa, if I'm not mistaken, only 1 or 2 operators have joined. One from South Africa and the other from, I think, another country in the north, if I'm not mistaken. And that's it. So and by the way, compared to other regions, you can see from Brazil, from Europe, etc., etc. So another way to also contribute is to join the initiative as an operator and to say, hey, hello, we are KINDNS practitioners, and we are happy to join, right? Oh. And of course, the last part is to join the mailing list as contributor, as commenter, etc., etc.
Wow. Is it that bad? I see you naming the African countries as if we have only 2, 3, 4 participants so far. Why are we not joining from Africa? And also the next bit of my question would be, do you have any statistics on how secure the DNS infrastructure is in Africa? Even if people are not joining, I guess people can still like do the practices, even if they are not joining the initiative. So do you have any statistics?
That's a really good question, Stephen. And that itself can be the topic for a new webinar. Okay. To quickly try to answer your question, and I will share a link to a blog post that I shared a few weeks back at the end of a project that I run to support 13 of our country code top level domains in Africa. So I randomly chose 13 of them, used the Zone Master tool we just discussed about before. Run the zone on it, got the results, and it was quite funny to see that, well, there are certain issues that probably exist because we are not following the best practices, or at the operation and maintenance level, there are some gaps, definitely. So what I did was to summarize those issues reported by Zone Master, propose solutions for each of them, and then engage with the CCTLD operator. We did that for 6 months, and we reduced from 213, I think, issues, we reduced to 83. If I'm not mistaken. So it was a reduction of 70% of the challenges. And of course, we can continue doing that, but this is only for CCTLDs. Now, I also engage with ISPs and with mobile network operators for DNSSEC validation mainly, right? And I have seen some kind of challenges also there, like all the recursive resolvers sitting in the same network, or the security to access the recursive resolver is not really good. Or also there are some logs there which clearly mentioned about some issues. The logs were there since few weeks, but no action was taken, etc., etc. You see. So how do we improve the hygiene of the DNS in our region is still a real concern. But I will end with this. I heard someone who told me once that, well, I was in a DNSSEC training, and the person just said, oh, it looks like with your DNSSEC stuff, we will now have to be looking or to be managing the DNS on everyday basis, while we have just configured the DNS there and we forgot about it, right?
Oh my God.
yes. Those are kind of things you discover when you engage with people. And really, I think that such kind of initiative we are running now can help the audience and our network operators to understand that most of the attacks we are seeing over the internet these days are actually taking place because the bad actors understand how the DNS works, how the internet works, and now they are using the DNS weaknesses to conduct their attacks. So all of us, it's really a call for all of us to engage more in the DNS ecosystem security.
Yeah, so that's really bad. People thinking you can just configure a server and more to that, a DNS server, and just keep it there. You have to always monitor and make sure that not only you patch the systems, you make sure that you are not the system is still running according to the baseline that you conducted. I will also invite you here on behalf of maybe Afrinic, so that we can collaborate to get maybe a blog post on this, and also following up on the research that you did on the vulnerabilities of the DNS system for CCTLDs. We can also include other types of DNS systems. And then we have a baseline, then we can publish, invite people to maybe improve the DNS practices on the continent. I hope that's something that we can do together. We have on screen now the results of the polls. So if you can take a minute or 1 minute to explain the results of the poll.
Thank you, Stephen. So the first question was, how many categories of DNS operators are identified in the KINDNS program? And of course, the good answer was 5, or is 5. I mentioned that several times in the presentation, and thanks for those who answered it well. On the other question, it was the KINDNS self-assessment is personal. The platform does not link any answer to the organization, and the answer is true. So feel free and feel secured while taking the self-assessment. The name of your organization will not be stored somewhere so that where later on we can see who is not performing well. No, that is not the purpose of the kindness. The only thing is that when you start the self-assessment, the name of your organization will be asked, but it's optional. If you want, you can put it. If you want, you can skip that question and move forward in the questionnaire. We put that just to kind of authenticate the report you will download later on for further work. Thank you, and back to you, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So people should not be afraid. We will not name you and shame you on the internet. But yeah, you know, if your DNS breaks, you are going to be public out there. Okay, so now
and maybe a quick comment on that, Stephen. Sorry, we have seen some incidents in the past. The last one is probably the one from Facebook, right? Was it in 2021, right? Actually, it make the community understood that all the Facebook domain name servers, authoritative name servers, are sitting in the same network, which is their network. Of course, they know what they were doing, but there is a risk there. Of course, they never imagined that what happened could have happened, but well, it happened. And if they were really following that BCP 16 I mentioned in my presentation, I think the impact of the issue will have been much more less than what we got. But it is what it is. And a few years back also, I think it was 2018 or 2017, I can't really remember. There was a big incident on DNS, dynamic DNS, which impacted Twitter, AWS, etc., etc. It was also a very big impact on the internet, and the issue was also the way they were running the DNS infrastructure. So again, we can think that DNS run on its own until the day there is an issue. And when people start now digging into it, they realize that, oh, you are not just following the best practices.
Yeah. So in our next session, when we will talk about DNSSEC validation, we are going to discuss all of the threats that can affect the DNS system so that people are aware. If you see a big network like Facebook, which is well maintained, and they are aware of this best practices because they are in the environment of IETF everywhere, you understand that it can happen to everyone. So it's very important for all of us. So I have a question for Cedric from the audience. What is your thoughts on African-owned recursive resolvers instead of using the popular Quartz 918?
Thank you very much, Stefan. Actually, one of the major topics that you will find when it comes to internet governance, it's data sovereignty. And something that we need to be aware is every time you use a foreign DNS resolver, you are sending your data outside, meaning that if you use the popular DNS resolver, the free one, you are sending your data and you also allow them to use your data and sometimes without your consent. So we encourage each and every one to actually run their own resolver. And also this is good for resilience, especially if you are running a company or if you are managing the IT infrastructure for a company. The best is to have your internal resolver. And you can still forward to any of the known public resolver, but at least have your internal DNS recursive resolver so that it will allow you to not always rely on external traffic for your DNS to work even internally. So I won't comment that much because I don't want to make any publicity or to send bad message, but I will stop there. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Cedric. Two words to answer this question, Yazid. 2 words, not 3. Hi. Can we say that by passing the self-evaluation test, we have then a very secure and reliable DNS server?
No. At the end, you need to take actions to improve.
I said 2 words. So when you have the self-evaluation, it's just a report. We are reporting, oh, if let's say you have a score of 50%, we'll now tell you, all right, this thing is wrong, this is wrong. You have to correct them for you to be secure, right?
That's it.
All right.
Now I did 2 words.
Okay, so for the next one is from Mohammed, and he said bind NSD not which one is more mature to run DNSSEC? Today is not DNSSEC, but all right, we can try.
So all of them have their pros and cons. They are all good. Again, it depends on what do you want to achieve. Because don't forget that each of them have the features, right? So always think out of the box and don't just focus on DNSSEC only until you realize that, well, maybe not does it very well more than bind, but you still need some of the bind features. So it all depends on what you want to achieve in terms of your global configuration.
Thank you. So the next question is for Afrinic. Does Afrinic organize internationally recognized DNS certification? And how can an operator take that certification? All right, for the certification program at Afrinic, right now we have certification only for IPv6. So IPv6 for engineer, silver and gold. But for the DNS and other programs, is something that is going to happen in the future, but right now, none. What is the best way to improve DNSSEC to protect against DNS spoofing attacks and other security attacks? Should we just ask people to keep these questions for next week, or do you want to take that one, Yazid?
I think next week is good. That will make the participant come back.
All right. So we want you back. We will keep this question in our question bank. The next one, zonemaster.net does seem to work with local TLDs, UG and KE. Do you have any idea of that?
It should work. It works.
All right. So maybe just share your contact in the chat, Yazid, so that Cyrus can meet you later and better explain this. The next question is, could KINDNS contribute to the fight against the DNS abuse? Obvious, right?
That's a good question. The short answer is yes. The short answer is yes, but not only. So fighting against DNS abuse, it's a lot of things, and let's say that KINDNS is part of it.
Okay. All right. The last, okay, I see Cedric took that one in text. Thank you very much for the questions. Now I will give the floor to Cedric, and Cedric will share some perspective of Afrinic and also like take the self-evaluation for Afrinic, and maybe while we are here, Afrinic should also join the initiative, Yazid, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so Cedric, over to you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and thank you very much, Yazid, for the previous presentation. And thanks to all the participants for their question. Now we'll talk a little bit about KINDNS with Afrinic. And so let's be kind with DNS. And let's talk about our journey. First of all, I would like to meant to remind us that DNS is actually a critical infrastructure, and this is why. Because when we talk about critical infrastructure, most of the time, people will look at the ISPs, backbone, the transmission lines, everything that is more hardware. But we also need to take into consideration that critical infrastructure are also services like DNS, email, web hosting, everything. And in short, we should call critical infrastructure any system that, if not available, have a serious impact on internet connectivity. It can be a partial impact or global impact, but at least there is an impact and people can feel it. And why do we consider DNS as a critical infrastructure? Because again, without DNS, there is no name resolution. At the beginning of internet, it was IPs only because it was very simple, very few equipment connected to each other, so we can remember the numbers. But then somewhere in the 1980s, people realized that it will be with the increase of equipment, it was very difficult to now remember the numbers. So that's when DNS has been introduced, and make it easier for us to work. And today it's actually easier to remember www.afrinic.net than the IP address of Afrinic, which is 196.216.2.6 for the website. And also, there is also an added value when it comes to spam fighting. Now, I will now talk a bit more about DNS at Afrinic, because a lot of people ask us the question all the time, Afrinic, you guys are IPs, so why are you also doing DNS? Because when it comes to AF star, we look at AFTLD as the people that should be the one involved into DNS, but why Afrinic? And the answer is very simple, because first of all, as an RIR, we are supporting the ARPA zone. So Afrinic run to a part of the ARPA zone, and we have so when it comes to ARPA zone, you have the in-ADDR ARPA, which is the IPv4 reverse zone, and IP6.ARPA, which is the IPv6 reverse zone. And reverse DNS is very important when it comes to internet, because the main, I would say the main utilization of reverse DNS is when it comes to fighting spam. Your mail server will always check that the reverse zone exists, like the reverse name exists for the originator of an email that you receive. And that's the way that they will check if this is a spam or not. So Afrinic operates the C.in-ADDR ARPA and the C.IP6 ADDR, C.IP6 server.ARPA. So those are the two reverse zones that we operate on behalf of IANA. And we make it available through one of our ASN, which is the AS37181. Another service that we do when it comes to DNS, it's the Africa Domain Secondary Program, in short, AFDSP. And for this one, we have a separate ASN, which is the 37177. And what do we do with the AFDSP? We offer secondary to all the TLDs, so first and second level. So any TLDs that, CCTLD, sorry, that is interested into getting a free secondary service can contact us, and then we will provide the service. And so far, we have more than 40 CCTLD first and second level, and we have close to roughly 27 countries that have joined the initiative so far. And one of the question as well is, why do we use a separate ASN? This is simply to be able to provide the opportunity to give opportunity to network operators to choose what they want to allow on their traffic. The C zone is actually something that is mandatory, while this one is a program that we offer for free. So any network operators is actually free to let it go through his network or not. But we encourage everybody, of course, to let it go through. And the last program that we run is actually the AFRSCP, which is the Africa Root Server Copy Program. And what do we do in that program? We support the installation and the deployment of copy of root server in the Africa region. For those who are not familiar with DNS resolution, whenever you are looking for a name like a URL, www.afrinic.net, it will always start by looking at the root, and then it will go up in the hierarchy, in the tree, to be able to find the website. So having more copy of root servers in the region will help for more resiliency. And when you don't have one in your country, it means that you are relying on international connection to go and do sometimes a simple check for a website that is hosted locally. And in that program, what we do is that we support provisioning of hardware by sponsoring, and also we manage the admin contact part. And so far, the operators that we are working with, we have the D, the E, the F, K, L, and very soon we should also be able to work with the M. So all of those operators are actually running the same. They are providing the same information. So no need for you to multiply the root copies of root server in your country because you get actually the same information. Best is to put them, to disperse them geographically in your country, but not put all of them at the same place. And also another thing that we do is our Afrinic Anycast program. And in that Anycast program, we make sure that we provide the two first program that I mentioned. So the reverse zone through our NS2 and the AFDSP through what we call the CIP. So we have nodes that are inside and outside our region, and we have both virtual and physical. So in some countries, we deployed servers that we are maintaining and that are there available. And in other countries or region, those are partners that provide us virtual machines from where we can run those services. And the good thing with Anycast is that you will always connect to the closest available one. So even if the one close to you is not available, it will always revert back on the next one. And currently we have physical location like Tunisia, Rwanda, and we have virtual location like Tanzania, Madagascar, South Africa, so in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban. And all this is really thanks to our technical partners like TISPA for Tanzania, Madagascar. We have also INCS ZA for South Africa. Now that I've mentioned all those programs, when it comes to DNS and our journey, how did we manage and what did we do? Because this is part of the question that we want to answer. When 10 years ago, this was the state of Afrinic. We had 2 data center collocation. So one was active and the other one was more disaster recovery. We had 3 physical Anycast nodes and 1 virtual location. And unfortunately, because of the state at that time, we could have like up to 10 hours of downtime over the year, which was really sad and not really good for us. And then we decided to work on it over time to see how we can make our infrastructure more resilient and make sure that that service is actually better. And today we have been able to improve a lot, and we currently have 4 data center colocation, and all of them are active and with backup, and we use them as a backup of each other. We still have the 3 physical Anycast nodes. We have increased the number of virtual locations, and we have more in the pipeline. And what we do is that wherever we are the one in control, so mainly the data center colocation and the virtual location, what we do is to make sure that we have at least 2 virtual nodes per location. And up to our, when it comes to uptime, there was a very big improvement, because now we are close, we have 4.9 when it comes to uptime, and those are our figures for 2022. So we have come a long way, but it was something that we noticed, we actually realized that was not that heavy and not that difficult. When you stick to the best practices and you also look at the options that are available, one of the questions from the audience was, okay, the operating system. When you go for Unix, Linux operating system, again, you can spin up a VM, a very small VM to run DNS. So meaning that running DNS is no longer something heavy for your infrastructure, and you can do it very quickly. And also because you are, when you have a good DNS infrastructure, you can easily have recursive resolver all over the place that will pick the information from your master. And of course, the recommendation when you run authoritative server is to have hidden master, and then the master, and then you can push to the resolvers. So right now, this is what we do. So even if we have a DDoS on one of our nodes, we won't feel it. Why? Because the DNS that are publicly available are actually just recursive resolvers. So they are copies of what we have behind. And 2, we are anycasted. So meaning that if one of the nodes goes down, we still have the others that are available. And this is how we have been able to go into a more resilient infrastructure. And again, I invite you to join our DNS support program, our Africa DNS support program. And this is totally free. You don't have to be Afrinic member. So if you are a CCTLD and you want us to help you and support you, we will be more than happy to provide support. And again, those are your data. We won't share it with anybody or use them. Now I will go into showing you the self-assessment. I wanted to do it live, but to allow you to give us some time, let me just show you some of the screenshots that I took when I did a mock self-assessment for Afrinic. So when you go on the KINDNS website and you click on self-assessment, this is the first question that you are being asked, your organization, which is actually optional, but I've put Afrinic Ops. And then you will be asked some of the questions like, why are you taking this assessment? To know where you stand, to join KINDNS, or to use the result to convince your organization to better securing DNS or others. So those are the questions that you will have to answer. You have a first part where those questions are more related to your, how do you follow the best practices when it comes to DNS? So like which component of the DNS you're running? Is it authoritative, recursive, both, or is it managed by a third party? And then you have questions like this one, my practice one, my authoritative zone are DNS sign and I follow best practices. So it's just for you to now click on which one you are doing or you are practicing. And at the end of the first part, you will have this result. So there are many more questions, but for the sake of time, I've skipped them. Congratulations, you have completed the core DNS operation practices assessment. Your score so far is 195 plus 0 bonus point for credential management. And then ask you, do you want to continue? And I say yes. And there is the part 2, which is now more related to the security practices. And when it comes to security practices, again, it's just questions, checkbox. So you don't, I mean, it's not difficult at all. And it's not complex because all the questions are there, all the explanations are there. You just have to click the checkbox. And once you have choose everything, then you have the final result. So if you remember, the first one was 195 out of 300. So your score for authoritative TLD, SLD. SLD here is secondary level domain, and resolver operators practices 195 over 300. And your score for the core system security assessment is 60-100. Just as a disclaimer, those are not the information for Afrinic. I was just going through and I wanted to see what you get depending on how you answer the question. And this is the total score. And as you can see, it also gives you like, you have like that gauge that gives you the percentage of success. So thank you very much for your attention. Back to you, Stefan.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Yeah, that was nice. Overwhelming information about Afrinic and all this DNS stuff you're doing. It's very cool, actually, improving the DNS system in Africa. Thank you very much for that. So I just pasted the link to the self-assessment in the chat. If you want to, you know, take your self-assessment and maybe share your score with us, we'll keep it. We'll keep it for us. Yeah, we'll not use the information anywhere. So please, if you can, please go ahead and you have the link. I will paste the link again in the chat. Please just click on the link and then fill the form. Take the self-assessment while we are looking at the questions in the question section. So the first question, I see the first question is already being answered by Yazid. So I will take the second one from Bubakar, and he's hello. We have an Anycast Afrinic server. I would like to know where is the Afrinic server located, Mr. Cedric, please.
Okay, thank you very much. For security reason, I won't give details, but what I can say right now is that we are present in 4 data center collocations. So in Mauritius, in South Africa, in Kenya, and we are still working on having more physical collocation. And when it comes to nodes for the Anycast, we are present in Tunisia, Rwanda, Tanzania, Madagascar, South Africa, of course, and there are many more that are coming. So that's what I can share for now. And the rest are our partners, so we cannot disclose more information about the exact location, but at least we can share information about the countries.
All right, merci, Cedric. What is a parent domain and how is it different from a domain name? Cedric, Yazid, who is taking that one?
I'm not sure if I well understood, but a parent is usually referred to where you have got the delegation for your domain from. So if you are, let's say, yazid.bj, that's my domain. My parent domain will be .bj. And the parent domain for .bj is the root of the DNS, right? So that's it. The parent is where you got the delegation to manage your domain from, or where you registered your domain from, basically.
All right, I see some nice exchanges between Miguel, Foko, and Yazid. Please, Yazid, can you share your email on the chat again so that you can liaise with Miguel? Because I see he's doing some nice research on DNS. And please, Miguel, when you are done with your research, please, we have our platforms where we can also share your findings. So please, when you are good with your research, please bring the result to us. We are always eager to know the findings on these interesting systems. So Yazid, please, your email again. Okay, good, that's done. Joe Mawa is asking, which resiliency is the best practice to manage a DR site in terms of replication? Yazid, do you understand that? Can you take it?
Not sure, but I will pick up two things here. I hear DR and I hear replication. So it all depends on, again, what you want to achieve, and there are multiple options that are there. Likewise, you know, in techniques, there are always more than one option. So it all depends on what you want to achieve, and you will apply the replication mechanisms that, of course, depending on your configuration as well, etc. But feel free to drop me an email and we can discuss further about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wayne, please, do you have the poll question on the NPS? If yes, please stop the current one and then publish that one. Meanwhile, I have a question from Bubaka again. Do Afrinix Africa DNS program support recursive providers? Example with Anycast? Cedric.
Okay, thank you for the question. So what we do with our DNS programs is that we offer secondary to the CCTLD. So, I mean, any CCTLD operator, so first and second level, can come to us and ask us to be secondary for them. So at that time, they will add us as part of the secondary, as part of the authoritative name NS, and then we will provide that zone from anywhere we have servers. So now the recursive providers, we work with some of them. We work, for instance, we work with PCH, and we have our system that are anycasted also thanks to our partnership with PCH. So I hope that I've answered the question because it's a bit vague, but well, this is what I can say regarding that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Yazid, please, what's the difference between a parent domain and a domain name?
Oh, okay. I think we already answered that. So a domain name is a parent, and the domain name, they are all domain names first, okay? But because the DNS is a hierarchy starting from the root of the DNS, which is where all those top level domains are defined, sorry, the .com, .org, .bj, .fr, etc., etc., .africa, right? So they are defined there, but it doesn't mean that they are managed at the root level. So for those top level domain, the root is just the parent, and the root will do what we call the delegation to now transfer the domain administration to a third party, right? And this is what the parent does. Once the parents have done that, it's finished. Now the domain owner, the registrant, will now start managing its domain on its own. And it almost works the same way if you also, as a person called the registrant, you go and register for a domain name under .africa, let's say yazid.africa, or maybe yazid.com, etc., whatever it is, right? You still have your domain. The .com is also a domain, but the .com or the .africa will be the parent for your domain. That's it. I hope I answered the question.
All right, thank you. Cedric, please share your email address so that Boubacar can contact you after this to follow up on his question. We are at the top of our time. And here I will humbly request you give us a few minutes of your time to fill the survey that I've just shared in the chat. Please click on the link and tell us what you think of this session. Was it informative? How did you find the panelists? How did you find myself, your humble servant? And how was the material? And yeah, so please take 1 or 2 minutes to fill that survey and let us know how we can do this better in the future. Also, if you have ideas of topics that we can cover, we are welcoming those as well. So please take some time to fill the survey, and yeah, thank you. So now that we are at the end of this session, I will just give 1 minute, not more, to Yazid to give some concluding remarks.
Thanks, Stephen. I think I will do even less. So it's really a call for everyone to work together to make our DNS ecosystem more resilient and more secure. And doing so needs a lot of work, but let's start from somewhere and do it together. Thank you, and back to you, Stephen.
That's short. Okay, Cedric, 1 minute, not more.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Yazid. I will just go along the line with Yazid and say, join the DNS programs. There is a lot of initiatives, and we will be, we will be more than happy to help you and to support you into that. And also join us for the next webinar on DNSSEC. That one also will help a lot when it comes to securing the DNS. And thank you again for your attention, and back to you, Stefan. Merci.
Merci. So the Afrinic webinar series is actually a platform where we welcome experts from around the world to discuss internet-related topics. It could be something related to governance, critical infrastructure, the open standards, and so on, so that we make sure we secure the internet around our continent. We welcome all of you. If you have a topic to share, please contact us when we type my email or the email of comms department in the chat so that you can reach out to us. So if you're interested in covering a topic, please join us. Also, please share the news about the webinars so that your friends and colleagues can also join and learn. The aim is to build a robust, more accessible and secure internet in the region. So for next week, we'll have a very powerful and exciting section, I can assure you. We'll still welcome Yazid. All right, Cedric also will be there. And we'll also welcome another expert from Afrinic, David Njiku. He would, okay, okay. All right.
No, okay. Stefan, I just wanted to say something after you, but go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so it would be very exciting to have you and your colleagues to join, and also we will be very happy to see that after these sessions, like the security ranking of the DNS infrastructure in the region grows up, and yeah, we'll feel like contributing. If you have something to say against Cedric, then I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yes, 30 seconds. I just want to challenge all the ladies that are in the ecosystem right now. When it comes to the webinar, a lot of people are saying that they call it manel because there is more man. And so far, what we see is that ladies are chickening out when it comes to the webinars. So I will invite any ladies that is actually working with DNSSEC to send us an email at events@afrinic.net or any of the email, Yazid or mine, and let us know if you are interested, at least even for 5 minutes, to share your experience when it comes to DNSSEC. Back to you, Stefan.
Merci, merci. So now I will close the session here, and it was really, really interesting. Thank you, guys. And thanks to the comms teams at Afrinic, who is behind the scene, working hard to make this happen, namely Suzanne, Avi, Wayne, and Ashil. Thank you, guys, for making this happen. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.